BrickLink Designer Program has some really good sets, but Lego's make it up as we go dishonesty has killed the program's sizzle. Hang on, has someone really just put that in my comments? Scalpers are fuming and Lego fans are celebrating. I'm just sat here in the middle with my popcorn out enjoying the show. But how on earth did we get here? Let's quickly recap this whole Scalpers versus Lego saga. And we're going to pull out some of the highlights from the comment section over the last few days because this is getting bonkers. So if you have missed my previous video on this, I'll link to it down below. I made a whole thing a couple of days ago, basically explaining the situation with Series 5 of the BrickLink Designer Program. But to give you the very short version of it, instead of strict limited quantities on this wave, Lego have decided to dynamically increase the amount of stock available for the more popular sets. Essentially, the sets are no longer limited to 30,000 per set. They'll make more of the sets that have got super high demand. The reason they've done this is basically because they were tired of seeing genuine Lego fans miss out on sets that they really wanted. They even put this message at the top of the BrickLink Designer Program Series 5 page, and it was there days before these actually went up for pre-order, and says the love for Series 5 has blown us away, so we teamed up with our manufacturing friends to make more sets available. They have warned it might be a one-time deal, but by reading between the lines, the general gist is I think if it goes well, they'll do this for future series. If not, it can be seen as a one-time only experiment. Specifically, what this means is it's looking at this point like all 5 sets are going to be available throughout the 2-week pre-order period rather than selling out in 2 hours like the more popular sets have done in the past. And Lego are basically reallocating their production slots on the fly. So we've seen the Adventure in Transylvania set be moved from a 30,000 to a 50,000 production cap, whereas the sets that are less popular, their cap stayed at 30,000. Lego is still enforcing a strict 2 sets per household policy. So this isn't about Matey Boy being able to stock up on 100 of them to sell on his eBay store for the next year. It is about getting more of these sets in the hands of genuine Lego fans and collectors who want to buy them to build them. And honestly, the way I've just explained it, it all sounds super positive, right? And I don't understand how there could possibly be any controversy as part of this. But there is one small subsection of the Lego community who are not at all happy, and they're letting us know. But we're going to get to them in a minute because I want to show both sides of this. So we're going to start off by having a look at some of the fan reactions from what I'm going to describe, with no bias whatsoever, as the genuine Lego fans who are basically celebrating a really consumer-friendly move from Lego. Because for a lot of fans, this is the first time they've had a fair opportunity to get these sets for retail price. Because when they're selling out in 2 hours, if you happen to be at work or in a part of the world where you should be asleep at the time of day where the sets become available, then often by the time you get to go on there to buy them, the one you want is really gone. And the only way you were able to get them is to pay over the odds to a scalper for them. And yeah, that's obviously not an ideal situation. So reading back through the comments on the previous video, it is generally fans celebrating the fact that they actually are getting a fair crack at getting these sets at a fair price. And it is seen as a very, very positive move by 95% of the people who commented on that previous video. And even Reddit seems pretty universally positive about it, with a few exceptions. I've got this quote off of Reddit: "Good on Lego for caring about the community enough to break rules that scalpers want to use for their advantage." And that sums it up absolutely perfectly. I love that. There's also very much a sentiment that agrees with this comment. Absolutely, the more scalpers get shafted, the better. And I think on the whole, there is a sense of vindication after a good couple of years of watching these just sell out instantly and then not be able to buy them for a reasonable price as a result. And I could pick out dozens of these comments from the comment section of my own video. I won't. I'll stick to a few of my favorites. "I don't need consumers to win. I just need scalpers to lose." Someone else has said, "I love that some scalpers or investors are saying that Lego are breaking the rules as if Lego weren't the ones who made the supposed rules in the first place." And that is an excellent point, which of course there's scalpers arguing with in that comment. "Anything that makes scalpers angry makes me happy," I think sums things up pretty well. And I think this one sums things up pretty well as well. "Fans get the sets, Lego make more money, scalpers are dumbfounded, leftovers can be sold later." Brilliant. And that does just sum the situation up perfectly as far as I'm concerned. But of course, every story has 2 sides and not everybody is popping champagne. So I'm going to be fair. I am going to present to you the argument from the scalpers side. And obviously they're not referring to themselves as scalpers. They're referring to themselves as collectors who just happen to sell their collections quite regularly, but they're collectors. And to be fair, there are a few actual collectors who are kind of taking this side of the argument as well. And it comes down to putting a lot of value in that exclusivity and wanting their Lego sets to have value and be worth lots of money. It's not something I'm particularly bothered about because I don't ever plan to sell my Lego collection. But I guess if at the back of your mind, you're using that as your justification for spending as much as you spend, well, at least it's worth something. Or maybe you are buying with a view to selling one day, if not doing the immediate scalpy quick flip. Obviously, the value being as high as possible is going to be important to you. And if you're one of the people who does consistently get a hold of these sets and they're then worth loads, that I guess can be more appealing than getting the sets and them being worth less. And a lot of the people in this group do feel blindsided by it, with the general consensus being that diluting the exclusivity of the set is a bad thing. I'm paraphrasing a very long comment here, but somebody said limited runs make these sets special. Now Lego's flooding the market and punishing those of us who invested early. And that word punish has been used a lot. And there is the argument that not everybody buying multiple copies of a set was doing it as a scalper to do a quick flip. Some are collectors who might build one and store one with the hope that the store one is going to increase in value over time and they could maybe sell it 5-10 years in the future, which you're still going to be able to. I would add in, these are still limited run sets that are only going to be available for 2 weeks. I think if you are taking a long-term view, they are still going to be worth more in 5 or 10 years, and it's probably going to make very little difference. I firmly believe the only prices that are actually being affected by this are the ones in that immediate launch window in 6 months' time. So I think if your genuine intention was to buy and hold long-term, I think you might be feeling punished when you haven't really been. There's even been a few scalpers claiming that they're the ones who are creating the hype in the first place. And if we scare all the scalpers off, we'll actually end up in a situation where these sets don't sell out at all. I think the idea that they wouldn't even meet the 3,000 order minimum threshold without the scalpers getting involved is pretty bonkers to suggest. And ultimately, if they don't completely sell out because nobody is buying them to flip them, but every genuine fan who gets them is able to get one, I still fail to see it as a bad thing. I don't need the hype. I just want the really cool Lego set. So I guess the question now is this change going to ruin the market going forward? Because I think that's what a lot of scalpers, collectors, resellers, whatever you want to call them, wherever they see themselves on that scale, has that collector's market been ruined by this decision? Let's have a look at what this could mean for the future of Lego and the BrickLink Designer Program. Because ultimately it is potentially the start of a new era where limited edition doesn't mean impossible to get, especially if the new pre-order to demand model becomes the norm for the BrickLink Designer Program going forward. And I think it has sent a clear message to the scalpers that they can't bank on the BrickLink Designer Program the way they did before. They can't just buy their 2 sets, know they're going to double their money on them and not have to put any work or effort in. Because I do feel the need to make clear that I've got nothing against Lego resellers. I think resellers do serve a genuine purpose and benefit for the community. I've bought a lot of retired modular buildings off of resellers. And if there hadn't have been people buying, keeping them in boxes for 10 years and then decided to sell them at some point in the future, I never would have been able to do that. So I'm glad I've had the opportunity to do that. I don't see that as a problem. So I think the people who are still buying multiples of this to store for 5 or 10 years and then sell, I have no problem with that. I think that's fine. I think that's great. I just was never comfortable with the idea of them immediately doubling in value the day they arrive, which is what we had certainly on some of the earlier BrickLink Designer programs when they were limited to 10,000. It's been a lesser impact on the last couple with the 30,000 limit anyway. And I think this just takes away any desire from scalpers to get involved and buy these sets at all. In fact, loads of them are threatening to cancel their pre-orders or return the sets they've ordered as if that's seen as a bad thing, because all that does is puts even more back available for genuine Lego fans to buy. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, scalpers, please continue cancelling your orders. It's all good. And I think we do have to remember that these are still limited run sets. There's still going to be less than 50,000 of the Transylvania set that ever exist. it was still only available for 2 weeks. So when we do zoom out a little bit and take that more long-term view, I imagine this is still going to be a set that if you try and buy it at a Lego convention in 3 years' time, it's going to cost 500 quid. So I don't think it changes things massively anyway. So I think ultimately I do get that collectors value exclusivity and limited sets do feel special. But at the end of the day, Lego is for fans of Lego. It's not an investment vehicle. And more fans being able to get a set that they want at retail price is a win. And I will forever believe that that's a win. And I think it's also important to give Lego the credit they deserve in this whole affair as well, because yes, this is a move that will ultimately put more money in their bank account as well, because they're able to sell more sets. But it is a massive positive for the community and something that a lot of people have been asking for, and they've listened and they've made a change. They've consistently been making changes to the BrickLink Designer Program to make it fairer, and I think they've hit upon a really fair solution for everybody. And ultimately, in the long run, it's much healthier for Lego, the Lego community, Lego collectors, for Lego to be a hobby where the fan base can actually buy products rather than being a way for a few individuals to make a load of money. We don't want Lego turning into Pokemon cards. That's not to say I'm not interested in hearing reasonable points of view from the people who take the opposite side of the argument. I am afraid if your argument is just me no make as much money now, then you're not going to get any sympathy from me. But I'm interested to hear well-reasoned arguments for why this might not be for the best for everybody long term. Let me know down in the comments section. And there's even been a few people saying this might crash the older BrickLink Designer Program sets. Firstly, I have absolutely no idea how or why, but if it did, oh my word, I would love to be able to get the modular Lego store, the construction site, the bowling alley. Oh, I'd have a list. I wish we could go back and crash the prices of those older sets. As ever, I love reading the comments on stuff like this. It does provide me with hours of amusement and entertainment. So keep your comments coming in. I keep the discussion going. And don't forget as well, we've got the announcement of Series 8 of the Brick Designer Program coming up this weekend. So expect a video in the next few days of me reacting to those sets and possibly even speculating on how many of them will be available to order. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for loads more Lego content. And thank you very much for watching.